everyone good?
Yeah.
All right.
So we're going to talk a bit about a few of the selected horror themes, horror films that you've been in. Then we're going to leave it to the audience to ask questions because I know they wait a long time to talk to you. So we'll get them up here. So let's start from the beginning. In Cold Blood, which is just a masterpiece. How do you start off with a film like that? It's like starting with Citizen Kane, and then how do you keep going after that?
Actually, the first film was a film called In the Heat of the Night.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Awesome.
And that led to In Cold Blood. Sidney Poitier and Quincy Jones called the director of In Cold Blood and said that they thought he should look at me. So that's how In Cold Blood came.
You play a pretty nasty guy in that movie, which is funny because you're not a nasty guy.
You don't know anybody.
Obviously, you've had a steady career since you started over, almost 50 years ago.
Can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll get closer.
What made you decide to first want to be an actor, or did it just come naturally?
Well, I'm from Georgia, and when I was 19, I hitchhiked to California, and I was going through Texas. I had water blisters this high above my hairline. It was so hot going through the state, but I've hitchhiked across Texas about three and a half times in my life, but I got to California and tell you the truth, I got drunk and ended up in the acting class. The coach said, I don't know what your problem is, don't come back to my class. So I went back the next week, and he apologized to him, and he gave me a monologue to do for the Eugene O'Neill one-act play called Long Voyage Home. And for some reason I went back the next week and did it, and when I did, I said, this is it, this is what I want to do. So I'm still trying to learn how.
And being out in Hollywood, is that kind of an experience all on its own, or is it a huge difference from what it was back then to what it is now?
I think every place has changed, but when you're younger, you're rolling with it a little more. But that's one thing that's so cool about being on The Walking Dead, is that it's shot in my home state, and I was running into people that I knew when I was 4 or 5 years old, which was kind of strange. When you knew them then, your life was ahead of you, and now you're sitting there and you're kind of looking back quite a bit. So it was interesting. It gave me the opportunity to spend some time with my mom, who will be 100 next month. So it's been good. Life's been good.
Now, obviously, everybody wants to talk about The Walking Dead, which I promise we'll get to. One thing that I would hope is a bit of a precursor, other than the fact that you've been in so many films, is a horror film that I know a lot of fans here like, Leslie Vernon, Behind the Mask: The Return of Leslie Vernon. So, I'm going to assume you didn't have to audition for that role as Eugene. You were just called on, I'm going to assume.
Yes. I knew one of Scott Glosserman, who was a friend of mine, and I let him talk me into doing it, because it was a very clever script, it was a very smart script, and it was a lot of fun doing it. The rumor is they want to make a sequel, but I wish they'd hurry up and do it. I mean, in the last one I was able to get out of the box. You wait too much longer, I may not be able to get that ground up.
And Nathan Basil, who played Leslie Vernon, you seem to have a nice connection with him.
It was fun. It was a lot of fun. And again, a lot of young, talented people. It's so fun to meet these young people that I've been fortunate enough to work with. That's kind of been the case my whole career. I've been fortunate to work with really gifted people right from the beginning. Sidney Poitier, Rod Steiger, George C. Scott, Burt Lancaster. A lot of you may not know who some of these people are. But right from the beginning, I've worked with.
And right now, obviously, I'm sure a lot of people are here because of The Walking Dead, which is such a huge cultural phenomenon. How did you get involved with that? Did they just give you a call and say, hey, listen, we want you to be a part of this?
Basically. I was in Georgia for my mother's 97th birthday, and I made a comment to this friend of mine saying, as much work as I've done and as many films as they've shot in Georgia, I've never worked here. And about an hour later, the phone rang, and it was this. So they, it started out 2 or 3 episodes, and then 20 minutes later it was 10 or 11, and 10 minutes later it was first season, and maybe the second season. I said, let's do a season at a time. So that was, and when you hear names, like Frank Darabont and Gail Ann Hurd, you get interested because they have been involved with some very good films. And, so I looked at the first season, I said, this is a good show. These are talented young people. And Nick Taro's work was just fantastic. And so I said, yeah, I want to be involved with that. It would be fun. And it was fun.
Were you sad when your character, spoiler alert, was...
Well, I didn't throw any chairs or anything. But, I was expecting it, When I saw episode, in the first place you're going to go when you go on the show. You just don't know when, And then in episode 403, was it Isolation, I think the name of it? Where I had that speech when you step outside. That beautiful speech was wonderfully written. And when I got that, I said, they're going to kill me. You don't live long after that. And then in episode 405, there was no doubt in my mind. If there had been before, there wasn't now. And the next day, sure enough, Scott Gimple called me into the office and told me that I was on the way out. So. But it was fun. It's a tough spot for him to be in, to decide who he's going to kill. but it's, again, you kind of expect it, you know what's going to happen. But it was fun. It was fun. And I made some friends that will stay friends from now on. So.
Is there anybody on the show that
You're not here right now.
Is there anybody you've grown particularly close to that, you were talking about people that you stay friends with. Is there anybody that you really love from the cast who obviously is still there?
Well, I tell you, really, everyone on that cast is bonded. It's a very close-knit group that I haven't seen any ego flashes of people trying to, outposition someone, which you see occasionally in my business. But no, everyone, I like them all. It's a good group. It's a good group. Talented, smart, good looking. I hate them.
Is there any episode in particular for you that you really love and that was really poignant for you?
Well, a lot of the episodes, I mean, not just the ones that I was in, but all the stuff with the Dixon brothers was interesting stuff. I mean, I thought Sarah, and I loved Dale. I thought Dale was a wonderful character. And I loved Irony, Singleton. You know, all those cast members that were killed off from the first season, when they were killed off, that was a big loss for the show. They basically built the fan base. You know, they expanded the fan base. I think there was fans based on the comic books, but then I think the cast expanded it beyond the followers of the comic books. So they did a great service to the show. And in essence, I think as they died off, the remaining cast members have walked on their shoulders. And now I guess they'll be walking on my head.
Do you get noticed a lot out in public? Do people call you out? Yell Herschel.
Well, they do, yeah. They do. I mean, it's definitely changed my profile. I'm on police blotters now. One DUI.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and open it up for fans, because I know you have a lot of questions for Scott, this gentleman.
Scott, personally, my favorite episode from this last season had to have been Internment with you in it, where it was just a Herschel episode. My question for you, sir, is when Jeffrey DeMunn departed the series, and he was really kind of like a voice of reason, kind of a father figure to the whole group, as you could tell. What did you feel like coming into the series, thinking that was probably the kind of position that you're going to be put in, where you were already a father in the series, and you were going to kind of watch all these people? How did that make you how did you interpret your acting into finally being that figure where you were going to kind of look over a group of people like that?
Well, due to whatever thought processes were going on in the writer's room, when I came on, I had no idea that Jeffrey DeMunn that Dale would be taken out. I know at one point in my first season, I was told that they were going to take me out, that they were going to kill me. And they said the episode 10 or 11, so I'm reading the script, and they didn't, and I'm reading the script, and they didn't. So and Jeffrey loved the show. And I won't speak to what, his reasoning, that was the reasoning behind that. But I realized that it opened the door, I think, for Herschel to be more, try to fill some of the void left by Jeffrey's departure.
Mine kind of goes along with that. I mentioned to you earlier that what you just said of how you kind of took Dale's spot as the voice of reason. So I was just wondering, like, how was the transition for you as a fan and as the actor to go from being kind of like the ignorant guy that wants to save all the zombies to being the logical one that everybody comes to?
Well, it was interesting to me. Between season 2 and 3 of the show, my first and second season, at the end of the first season, Herschel became more proactive. He was taking out the zombies. He got it. Episode 8, he got it. He finally got it.
Yeah.
And then when they would run off the farm, at the end of the season, I said, okay, I'm not going to cut my hair until the show starts up again. And at a certain point, I said, I'm not going to shave. So, because I thought, I don't know what the time frame will be between the 2 seasons, but if there is a time, a bit of time in there, several months, 6 months, then it might be interesting to see Herschel physically changed, because he's lost his farm, he's lost his wife, he's lost his friends. So maybe he wouldn't care as much about his personal grooming. But and now I've got attached to it. So.
Yes.
Did you get to keep the front head?
It's at home in a trash bag.
How is it for you now at this point in your career in your life to have this level of fame, to be a part of a franchise like this, and how is it for your family?
Well, I'll tell you, it's terrific. You know, it's not bad to be appreciated for what you're doing. My mother was in line at grocery store. She still drives. And she heard some people in line in front of her talking about the show. And so she listened for a while, then she says, "My son's in that show." Then they kept talking about the show, and she says, "As a matter of fact, so am I." Because she is. There's a picture of her on the wall in the Herschel's farmhouse. That quite a few scenes were shot by it, so you see a picture of her as a young girl here. So she says, "As a matter of fact, so am I." And this is right. She gets a big kick out of it. So how does it change my family's life? It's, you know, my mother's getting a joke out of it.
Okay, next question. Somebody had their hand up there, back of the back. Yep.
What was it like shooting the amputation scene?
It was very tough, very physical for everyone. There was a lot of energy being expended that day. Because you shoot take after take, it isn't just one take, you're just going all day long. You're shooting the same thing from different angles and just high energy being expended. And all the actors just, you know, pitched in and take after take were delivering. It was kind of inspiring to work with the rest of the cast that was involved in that.
Do you have a favorite piece of work, whether it's film, whether it's television, something that sticks out to you personally in terms of your entire career? Do you have a favorite?
Depending on what I'm thinking about, if I think about something that I've done, and I don't sit around thinking about it, but each one has a different meaning for me. The Heat of the Night was my first film role after 5.5 years of acting, and that led to In Cold Blood, my first lead role. Those are very important films. I loved working with Jack Clayton in The Great Gatsby. I loved working on The Ninth Configuration with William Peter Blatty. Robert Aldrich I did a film with. These are iconic directors. So it's hard to say. I did a film in Poland in 1984 during martial law, communist days, that we won the Golden Lion at the Venice Film Festival. It was in The Right Stuff. So, you know, I've worked with a lot of very good people and a lot of very good films, so I've been blessed.
It's just interesting. You've had this huge career. You've worked with so many iconic directors, and then you do The Walking Dead, and you're 100 times even more famous than you ever were before. And you've been embraced by all these horror fans. I'm going to assume this is just a whole different kind of it's just a different experience in general, being embraced by a whole community like that.
It's cool. I mean, I love it. But, you know, there are people who cross over. They're not just watching, you know, horror films or so they're crossover fans. And it's a different world today too. You know, when I first started working, you had 3 channels on television. You know, now you have multiple channels, so it makes, there's room for more product. There's room for more shows to be shown. You have DVDs, you have CDs, you have streaming on the internet, you can look at stuff. So it keeps shows alive longer. It allows people the opportunity to find their entertainment niche and to go there. So it's an interesting new world, and gets more interesting all the time.
Next question. Yes.
What are some of your memories of In Cold Blood?
Well, when I was up for that film, the first time I went in to meet the director, I sat down and he told me he needed a combination of, he named about 8 of the biggest stars in the history of cinema. And I looked at him and said, "You've got the wrong boy." I said, "I can't play any one of those guys, let alone all of them." And then I went home and read the book. And I got back in touch and I said, "I can play them." So then when, and that came about because, as I mentioned earlier, Sidney Poitier called Richard Brooks. He had worked with him in a film called Blackboard Jungle. And Quincy Jones called Richard Brooks. And so came in, and the director of In Heat of Night, Norman Jewison, was allowing Brooks to look at the dailies, which I didn't know anything about. So what do I remember about In Cold Blood? It was intense. It was as hard to get the role as it was to play the role. And maybe that's the case in almost a lot of things. It's harder to get it than it is to do it. It was a lot of fun.
In making In Cold Blood, did
I
you?
say-
Oh, sorry.
I say fun. That was a film that I would have preferred had never been made, and I would have preferred that the book had never been written, and I would have preferred that the murders had never taken place. But it happened, and I think Brooks did a great job, and Capote did a great job in writing the book, and Brooks the film, and because it didn't glorify what took place. So it was a very realistic film that again, was very fortunate to be in.
Did you get to meet Capote or deal with him in any aspect while making the film?
Brooks had a closed set, and 3 days he allowed the press from all over the world to come in. And I mean, there was press like you people here. There was a lot of people. And one day he allowed the press in the basement where we were shooting, where the clutter stuff took place, where the first murders took place in the house. And people were jumping around like cockroaches with their cameras, and it was really, really amazing. And Capote was there, and we went out taking pictures with a photographer from Life magazine. And one of those pictures ended up on the cover of Life magazine. So we were in every magazine in the world, from Paris Match to Italian magazines. So I've kind of brushed against notoriety or fame before this, but this is by far the most recognition that I've
Next question. Yes.
What's going on now post Walking Dead? What was your next project? Can you let us in on anything?
I just hope they haven't put me out to pasture.
Because I noticed you hadn't shaved and cut the ponytail, so I figured that's not something you probably hold on to, or that maybe you got caught wearing it and you filmed something already, or you're filming?
Yeah, I was
Somebody's reaching there.
Had to be asked.
you know who Michael Connelly is? He's a writer, and I've read all of his books, but he has a main character called Hieronymus Bosch, Harry Bosch. And I've known him since he first started writing these books, and he called me and asked me if I would play a cameo in his pilot. So I did, and I said, but you know I have a ponytail and a beard. He said, that's okay. So, because I was still shooting, I had a scene coming up for the last scene. So I got trapped into it in a way. But now I haven't heard from him on if I'm going to be back or not, so I kind of just like it.
Are you, if somebody were to come to you with a specifically horror script, is that something you're interested in? Or do you go more for the character, you're not looking to stick into any certain genre?
I think a good script is a good script, whatever the genre may be. A good role is a good role, whatever the genre may be. I recognized Herschel for being a great role, and had a lot of fun with it. And it's different doing a show, like a TV show, as opposed to doing a play, where you realize the full arc of the character in one night. You have the beginning, the middle, and the end. So in a TV show or a movie, well, a movie, you know the beginning, the middle, and the end. You know who's going to live, you know who's going to die, you know what's going to happen. You may shoot it out of sequence, but you know. And with a television show, you don't. You don't know what's going to happen from one season to the next. You don't know necessarily what's going to happen from one episode to the next. So when you read the script, you're looking at it in a little bit of a different way than you would a normal script, because you're saying, what is going to translate later? How is this going to impact what takes place later? So it's like planting seeds and hoping that the seeds grow, and it sounds kind of cliche, but it's kind of like giant apple seed, where you plant your seeds and you hope that it bears fruit somewhere down the road. So it's fun. I mean, basically, it's fun.
Another question. Yes, in the back. That's you.
I noticed you said that you kind of slowly started to realize that you were on your way out on The Walking Dead. Were you disappointed that you weren't a zombie?
Oh, I would prefer to still be there. I loved working on the show. And the actors and the people below the line, the cameramen, the makeup, and wardrobe, all the people. Sorry.
Did you like how you went out?
If you gotta go, I mean, I think it's probably better to go out in a fashion like that people remember than to just kind of fade away, so I think it's terrific. I think, David Morrissey did a great job. I love the scene too in that episode where the governor is hollering at Rick to come on down and blah, blah, blah. And so Rick goes walking down the hill with a 6-shooter on his hip facing a tank, assault weapons, and a lot of troops. And he's walking down with a 6-shooter on his hip. I said, this is crazy, I love it. It's like Gary Cooper walking down the street in high noon. Only he was facing an army.
In the back.
Yes, I have a question about Exorcist 3. Your role in Exorcist 3 is the scene where you're interviewed by George C. Scott. It's a very odd little scene, your performance as far as how you're practicing the interview, I guess, by the detective.
Yeah.
How much of that was directed from Gladdy? How much of that was just you?
I think it was George C. Scott asked me that question. He said, how much of this did you, Well, the rehearsal stuff was Bill Blatty, who I'd worked with before in the ninth configuration. He asked me if I would. He said, pick a role, any role you wanted there. Of course, all the roles that I would have wanted were already taken. But I took Dr. Temple. I said, I'll play Dr. Temple if you let me make him a chain smoker. Because I want to sell the idea that smoking is not good. And I smoked myself at the time. So the chain smoking in this scene was my idea. Looking in the desk for the notes that were where he was rehearsing the lines, I said, well, I write them and put them in the drawer here. And look, that was my idea, but the dialogue was Bill's idea, was Blatty's idea. So it, you know, any film is a collaborative effort, and you work with the people that are there, the directors, the writers, the cameramen, the wardrobe, everyone, props. Good props on the set inspires you to pick them up sometime and use them. So the whole thing is a collaborative medium. So I won't take credit for anything in that, but I did participate in it.
Well, I think it shows how good of an actor you are, because that scene sticks out in my mind out of the whole movie. So,
Thank you.
I think we can all agree on that. You're a great actor. Okay, next question. Really? No more questions?
One more.
Wait, hold on. That young lady.
How much from the comic book did you pull? Like, did you read it before you did Herschel?
You know something, I didn't, and I made a conscious choice not to, because I understood that the comic wasn't being followed to the letter of the comic, and so I said I might read something that I like and want it, and I might, if I get stubborn, I get very stubborn, and I didn't think that would be helpful.
You said before about how you never, even though back then we did In Cold Blood, you just never had that kind of notoriety that you have now as Walking Dead. So now, at this age, and as you were younger, how would you have handled that level of fame back then?
I'll give you an example. I was in Dubrovnik, Yugoslavia. I was doing a film there called Castle Keep that Sidney Pollack directed. And I was in a hotel on the Adriatic, and with this actor named Michael Conrad, who's this big, tall guy. And we were at the desk of this hotel, and these two girls come up, and we knew they were from the States because they weren't dressed like people who lived there. And one of them said to Michael, says, "You look familiar." And I said, he's a movie star. You recognize him from the movies. Yeah. And one of them says to me, "You look familiar." He said, "You recognize him from the movie." I said, "Yeah, what movie?" "In Cold Blood." She screamed, both of them screamed and hollered. And they must have backed 30, 40 feet up, and the walls stopped them, or they would still be back. So I guess, you know, I said, so that's what it's like to be a movie star. So this is a little different now. People don't run from me.
Did somebody over here have a problem? I thought I saw a hand raised. Yes, you.
Considering the number of characters you played, which one would you say is most like you, or which one were you more able to place more of yourself into?
You know, everyone in this room has the same emotions. Everyone that by the time you're 3 years old, you've experienced just about every emotion you're going to experience. So it's really just a question of finding the emotions that you think fit the character that you're trying to play. I did a film, I'm not Catholic, but I did a film based on a play that Pope John Paul II wrote when he was a young man. He wrote a play as a tribute to the person that was his inspiration for following his vocation into the priesthood. And that was interesting. Now, it's a person who lived from 1845 to 1917. And in his 40s, he came in contact with the homeless, and it changed his life. And he gave up the world of art, became a monk, and developed the balance of his life to the homeless. I'd like to say that I could do that, but I can't. You know, I mean, as an actor, you are called on to play a lot of things. In Cold Blood, I didn't want the audience to like me. I wanted them to dislike me, Richard Hickok. But I wanted them to know he was a human being. So you really kind of get a feel for what you're reading and what you expect out of it, and hopefully it works out.
We got time for one more question. Yes.
Okay, now that Dale's gone, now that you're gone, is there anybody left on the show you think that can replace you as the moral compass for the
Little
group?
ass kicker.
Thank you so much for coming out, Scott. We really appreciate it. Thanks so much.